my big job was I had to go and sweep the clubhouse with this biggest broom I've ever seen, and I'll be getting the VHS cassettes of the 1987 Open Championship. One of the worst sets of yips I've ever seen. He was missing the ball on occasions. The way I'd been taught, I couldn't play certain shots. I do feel like I can play shots that most tour players can. There's a rewiring that goes on where your brain starts saying, okay, maybe I can do this.
Right, Dan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. If I'd sat you down maybe 10 years ago, let's say 2014, I'd said, here's your YouTube subscribers, here's your Instagram followers, you've got an international best-selling book, would you have quite believed me?
No way, Dan, not at all. You know, I've always had ambitions of where I want to sort of grow my sort of coaching business and who I wanted to reach and coach. But I mean, in terms of the social media, I mean, 10 years ago, I mean, it wasn't really a thing back then. It was some people were doing it, and you know, they're still doing really well. But I mean, I never really set out to get into social media. It's something I've sort of fallen into, and it's just grown incredibly the last few years, and it's brought many opportunities. It's great fun being able to, you know, help golfers really all around the world. That's what I love, being able to reach golfers. But yeah, really, particularly the book. I mean, crikey, absolutely no clue that it would have the impact it's had, really.
And we'll come on to that and the book and sort of the way you teach a bit later. But what do you think specifically helped you stand out over the last 12 or 18 months in which you have kind of exploded? Everyone sort of knows you as a short game guy. Is there anything you can pinpoint specifically?
Well, I mean, the social media, I started doing that, I would say, properly only maybe 2 or 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago, maybe. And if you look online, there's so many golf coaches on there, great golf coaches delivering great content, but often just straight to the camera, you know, just delivering sort of tips to the camera. And I think there's worth in that, but I didn't want to go down that route. I wanted to, because you know, before then, you know, I had a lot of success coaching players at the top level, and I saw myself as a proper coach, as it were. I didn't want to be going down just a quick tip route on social media. I wanted to be more organic and more natural. So all of my content initially was just me coaching, which was actually really easy to film because I didn't have to plan anything. I didn't have to prepare anything. I didn't have to remember what I was going to say to camera. It was just someone, Tim, who used to help me on the short game schools, and he still does, and he would just basically just film me. It was really raw on an iPhone, nothing special, and it was just filming me coaching, generally on the short game schools, golfers of all levels, and we just sort of edited a little bit before and after. So it'd be, here's the golfer hitting the shot, not very well. This is me stepping in and sort of talking about this is what you need to do, and then, you know, generally people will get better after what I said, and then there'd be sort of the after. And I think when it's natural coaching and you can see the effect, I think that engages golfers. And I think when I started doing that 2 3 years ago, I don't think there were many, if any, coaches really doing it that way. It was all to the camera. So I think that's probably what has sort of set me apart a little bit. Of course, you know, coaching Rick Shields, that was a big moment, and you know, he reached out to me. He wanted some help with his own game because, you know, he's always playing these break 75s and whatever. There's a lot of pressure on him actually doing that, and he wanted to improve his short game. And he came and did a video here, and that was great because that's had, I think it's had well over 1 million views actually. I'm not sure exactly. I think it's something like 1.3 or 4 million views, and that helped bring a greater audience to me as well, which has helped move around some different platforms. And yeah, enjoyed working with Rick. He's come back. We've done some bit off camera as well. Sometimes just come down. We spend a day totally off camera work on his short game. He is getting there. A lot of people say, you know, he needs to. Why isn't he doing the same? He's getting better. He's hitting some great shots. He's just got to find times to practice it. And he's always playing under pressure. It's hard for him because he's got cameras on him all the time. And he's playing some of the best players in the world on tough tour courses. But he is improving. So yeah, I really enjoyed working with Rick and you know, helping him with short game. Yeah. Suggestion.
I tend to agree with what I've watched. It's rare what you do, I think. It feels like you're getting a peek inside an elite lesson, which a lot of golfers kind of want to see, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it feels like you just sort of, you know, you're behind the shoulders, sort of peeking in. Yeah, and I think that's what people like. It's just so it's natural, and I enjoy doing it as well. It's and I never for once, none of it's staged. I mean, it's just literally a group of 8 that turn up on a short game school, and we just do it, and lucky I seem to be able to make people hit better shots.
Yeah, and that is a good thing. That's got to be a great thing. So for people who may have only discovered you in the last 6, 12, 18 months, can you just take us sort of way back and how you've got here? You know, how did you become a pro? Where were you based? And how long have you been here at Woburn for, I guess?
Yeah, so I've played all my life. My grandfather was a top golfer. Dad's a good player, so it was in the family. I went to university, went down that route, got a business studies degree. We kept playing. I was a sort of decent, low handicap player. And then in 1999, I decided to get into golf after finishing my degree, and I started at Selby Golf Club in North Yorkshire, and then turned pro and joined the PGA in 2000. And then I embarked upon the 3-year training program, and then ended up here today. But the days at Selby, they were great days. It's a private members club, busy membership, and I've always loved the game of golf. I
Yeah.
just love it. And I remember when I first started there, it was just fantastic. I loved being in and around the golf 24/7. I mean, primarily I just worked in the shop. That's all I did, when I first started there. Andrew Smith was a pro at the time. Great guy, great coach. And he took me on, and he paid me the princely sum of £75 a week. That was a little bit less in winter and a little bit more in summer, but it was £75 a week. But I didn't do it for them. I loved learning. I was meeting people. I was in amongst the game 24/7. While I wasn't in the shop, I was out practicing. I was playing, and I just loved it. I remember one of my key roles really. I would open the shop at something like 6:30 in the morning, and then my big job was I had to go and sweep the clubhouse with this biggest broom I've ever seen. I've never seen a broom this big since. And I would go and sweep all the mud and the cigarette butts from all around the clubhouse every morning. It took me about half an hour. And I did it in all weathers. But it was my chance to sort of, visualize and dream about wanting to achieve in golf. And I never really sort of, obviously I'm there all weathers. I didn't particularly like going out in the rain and doing it, but it was good for me. It was good to sort of feel like, okay, this is where I'm starting. What have I got to do now to progress and build and progress through the career?
And you've been famously a short game coach now, but at what point in your sort of times learning to be a coach and coaching all these great golfers that you have coached, did the short game stuff start to become your niche?
It's probably when I did come here to Woburn, which is 2006. Came here, Eddie Bullock introduced me to the job, and got on really great with Eddie, really good guy, and he gave me the opportunity here, which is amazing. I mean, this is just for me the best golf club in the UK, and I started mixing with everyone in the golf industry, and I started coaching a guy called Steve Luton, who's a top player, who's still got a great career now. He's just achieving great things out on the Asian tour, and started coaching him in 2008. So not long after I came here, and had some success. Got him onto the European tour. We went to the tour school together. That was fantastic. He got onto the European tour, so that sort of got me a little bit of recognition. And then it wasn't long after that David Hull, Charley Hull's dad, approached me, because Charley was a great amateur player, but she was about to turn pro, and he felt that she needed some help with her short game specifically, and he'd seen some of the work I'd done with Steve, and we started working, and that was when Charley was 15 years old, and she turned pro at 16, and then because back then I knew short game, I studied it, I loved learning about the game, but I would say I was equal on long game and short game and putting, all the same. But then I was just doing short game with Charley, excuse me, and then suddenly you get that reputation, because she was so high profile. She burst onto the scene. She came second in her first 5 appearances on the Ladies European Tour. Suddenly I'm doing clinics with her. I'm in golf magazines, doing short game bits with her. And I thought to myself, well, I better really learn how to do it now. So I thought, well, I'm in this position, I better really study it, like really own it, and really get into short game in terms of the ins and outs of it. And that's when I started working on my own game. Number one, my own short game, because if I'm coaching a top player, I want to be able to demonstrate shots. Particularly in the clinics I was doing, I wanted to be able to demonstrate the shots, and I wanted to be able to study it. So if people asked me about it, I could really answer it. So I'd say it was really all down to Charley Hull, really, which sort of got me in that arena as a short game coach. And from there, it's just developed. It's just leveraged off that, really.
That's really interesting. So talk me through your short game before you started studying it. Where was it at, and what sort of studying did you do really to get yourself really to the stage you are now as a sort of guru of the short game, I guess?
Yeah, well, I was a product of the late 80s, sort of mid 80s, really late 80s, when I was really sort of a junior golfer playing, and back then it was always back in the stance, lots of loft, and just trap it and hit these sort of little low bullet shots. So it was always about hands leading, and I was proficient at it. I could do it, but I'd go and watch someone like Seve play, and he'd be playing shots very differently. He'd be letting the club release. He'd be using the bounce a lot more. He'd be getting a lot more control. He'd be getting the ball flying through the air much softer than I would. Going back to the days at Selby Golf, it wasn't that busy back then. So I was particularly in the winter. So I'd be in the pro shop and I'd be getting the VHS cassettes of the 1987 Open Championship, and I'd be putting that in. I'd be watching it, pausing it, watching it. So a lot of it was done from my own research. And back then there was no internet.
No.
So I was just doing it off VHS cassettes and books as well. Looking at the Faldo, training videos and what have you. And then I just remember having reams of paper I would go through, big books. I've still got them at home, that thick, of my own notes.
Wow.
And just several of them. And I just loved studying it. I just loved it, because I had a bit of an academic background anyway. So I just thought, you got to learn it like any academia. And I got into it. And in my own short game, I just wanted to be able to hit the shots that I saw people like Seve playing. And I soon realised the way I'd been taught, I couldn't play certain shots. You could play some shots really well. I mean, that is the way to play some shots. And I still teach in the right situation, off the correct lie. That's the way to play the shot. But I wanted my ball to come off softer. And I started working on, it was very much against the grain back then, in terms of how I was doing it. But I remember spending so much time over on the Marquis chipping green, which is really quiet, private area. I'd do that and I'd just go on practice. So I would say I had a decent short game, but I managed to take it to a whole new level through my own research and understanding that. And I think doing that really helped me then with my coaching when I was working with tour players, to be able to demonstrate shots, because I do think it's a really important skill to be able to demonstrate. When I do the short game schools, I think that's what people enjoy. I'm actually able to stand there, I'm able to talk about a shot for 5 minutes, and I can stand there and demonstrate it. And I think that's really powerful, because people learn really well through copying, from having the vision. So I've always taken my own golf quite seriously. And don't ask me to hit a long iron off or down the line or anything. I'm useless at that. Like my long game's not that good.
Yeah.
But my short game, I do feel like I can play shots that most tour players can, and
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
So I'm going to get this out now. It's the I feel like I'm Graham Norton or something. 3 releases, international bestseller now. But we're not going to go into detail about the 3 releases today. People can find that on our channel, your channel, or if they get the book themselves. But talk me through the 3 releases and how you kind of came up with that. How you came up with that framework and why you came up with that framework.
So it goes slightly back to how I was just saying about learning the different ways to swing the club. Okay, so in the old days you just drive this way, and I started to realise, you can release the bounce more and get different trajectories. And I started just using the terms release 1, 2, and 3 in my own coaching way back. 10 years ago. We said I was using these terms. I never really thought much of it. It was just a way for me to coach people better, so you could, as a golfer, would understand that, okay, if I finish there, the ball will go lower. Okay, if I finish there, it'll go a bit higher. And if I get finished there, it can go even higher. And you can start matching it to the lie. So really, it was just a way of communicating better to the golfer and letting the golfer almost be able to coach themselves and create some checkpoints. So I was using it all the time, and no one really said much about it. It was like, okay, that's quite useful. That's quite nice. And it was only when I was doing the short game school, a few people said to me, "You should make a little bit more of this." I think actually it's quite unique. So that's when I started doing the social media and talking a bit. Actually, for the first time, putting it down in text. Release 1, starting using it in some of the videos. Release 2, release 3. That led me to the book, because I've always I love listening and learning from other coaches all the time. I think it's a great skill. But the fear I had was, what I didn't want to do is turn Instagram on one day and a coach is saying this is release 1, this is release 2, when it's been my baby for like 10 years. Right. So really, I wrote the book simply to sort of copyright the 3 releases and say that this is mine. So, if there's any argument, we see that's
Published
there.
2022.
And now, listen, if people copy it and people want to use it, I don't really want to use the word copy, but if people want to use it, I'm honoured now. I love it. I love it when I see other coaches doing it. I really do. And the book was there just to really put my stamp on it and give it a name. And I think writing the book really actually helped my own understanding as well of short game.
Yeah.
Once you write a book and you start getting into it, you start having to answer your own questions. And how I've laid the book out, it's very sequential. It's very much about checklists and steps you have to go through. And I think that's why golfers like it, because they can really sort of, it makes sense to them.
It's translated to so many people, and to your point there, that it's sort of copyrighted it. I'd say now your name and the 3 releases it is synonymous with you now. People sort of reference it sort of anywhere. Is the reason it's so easy to understand, and I've sat and read the book and I'm starting to use it now, is that it is for me anyway, the most simplest thing I've heard about the game of golf, whether it's the long game or putting or short game, there's nothing that's been quite decoded quite like this. Is that why you think people find it so easy?
Yeah, without doubt. Golfers like systems. Golfers, when they're having lessons, they like to know that if I put it there and I put it there, I'm going to get the result. Okay, and it's sometimes not as simple as that, but I think in short game it can be. And I think short game has been like really poorly misunderstood. Like it's been like, well, poorly taught. You know, it's been misunderstood. It's like it's not really been an area of the game that golfers have really understood. So my big dream with it is just to create clarity and actually really help golfers love and understand the short game like never before. That's all I wanted to do. Just totally own it. And that's what it does. It gives you 3 shots. You can use different clubs with it, but it gives you so many more shots, but it gives you 3 ways of swinging the club. And these shots, by the way, they're not, I've broken it down. I've maybe sort of made people understand it more, but golfers have been using this shot for years.
Yeah.
You know, so there's some great video of Bobby Jones doing release twos, as I would call it, release two. He wouldn't have called it that, but he was playing some of these shots on video 100 years ago. So people have been using these techniques. It's just all I've done is packaged it so you can be coached better and understood better, which is for me is what coaching is. The real skill of coaching is being able to get people better. And if you can get people to understand it and have checkpoints, that's how you get better at this game. And that's what the book's done.
And it's working. I've got to say, a lot of people know are using it, are reaping the benefits. So, talking short game more broadly, we're going to come on and chat about the mental side of golf, I think, in a minute, because I think short game especially, it gets a lot of people. But who, in your eyes, in the professional game, past or present, has the best short game that you've seen, whether that's live or watching on telly? Who really stands out?
I mean, the obvious one would be Seve. I've got to say Seve, really.
Yeah, right.
I have to say him because he was an absolute hero of mine growing up, and I was lucky that I saw him playing Open Championships, and I was there right in his prime. He was winning majors when I was a young junior, so he's just an absolute hero. And his creativity and his ability to adapt and see shots and his visualization were off the charts. There's been no one like him since. Maybe Tiger, you could say.
Yeah.
But he was just a totally different level. He could get the ball landing. I remember him playing a shot of a 91 Open where I was there, and the ball landed on this mound. I can still remember it. And he's landed there, and I could see this big crowd coming, and it was Seve, because you know when it lands next to you at the Open, everyone brushes. Well, I was there, and I think you look back at the VHS from that, the Open Championship video. I don't know if anyone's still got one. I'm there, and I'm holding my rucksack like this, about this big.
Is that like on the official Open of that? Right. Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, so it's there, and I'm there, and I've got my sort of rucksack, and he plays this shot, and I remember it just landing on the green, just like dropped like a bag of sugar. It almost didn't bounce. I remember watching that ball go through the air, and it was almost like defying gravity. You know, when you have this moment, you remember, think, wow, that's seriously good. And then just watched him play all these amazing shots over the years. And so, yeah, Seve for me.
What was it about his technique that made him so great? What can you pinpoint now?
He could go both. Wow. He could fire it in low if he wanted to, that sort of low skipper, and then grip it. He could release it. He could use the bounce. He just knew how to work that club, and it all came from, you know, as a junior, he didn't have the really full sets of clubs, so he'd have stronger irons, and he learned to be able to hit softer shots with a strong club, and that's what made him really appreciate how the club works. So he could get the ball coming off really softly, and this is my big thing as well with juniors, by the way. These days, is like juniors these days are blessed with like so much equipment, like brand new equipment.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you give juniors too much too soon, they lose the flair, lose the creativity, or never really gain it actually. So Seve practicing with an old 3-iron and old worn out grooves and trying to almost like old golf balls and stones, that's what gave him the feel and the touch. And you know, you give a junior a 60-degree club at a young age, they're not going to learn that ability to do it. It's very difficult. That sometimes, you know, we try and give them too much, and actually the reason Seve was so good is he had so little.
And is there anyone in the modern game, you know, I bumped into you at Augusta, Clang.
Yes.
But we were walking around there watching some golfers.
Yeah.
Was there anyone that you watched that week or that you liked to watch in the modern game who were like, yeah, they've got it?
I think Scheffler's got a great short game. I think he's superb. He's just mentally brilliant, and he plays some amazing shots around the green. That little low fizzer he could play. I like the way Shane Lowry. He's got such soft hands, and that's my big thing. Like he looks so soft over the ball, and again he's able to play all the shots. So I think Lowry for me is probably the one I enjoy watching the most these days. Yeah.
So let's come on to the mental side of the sport. I know you're really interested in it, and I kind of want to pick into your mind about it, because do you think the short game is the part of the golf game that's most susceptible to a poor frame of mind and a negative frame of mind, or you know, oh, I can't do this, I'm not good at that shot? Do you think the short game specifically is most susceptible to poor mindset?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you're around the green, you're trying to save something, aren't you? You're trying to get up and down. There's a bit of pressure because, you know, you're trying to do something. Off the tee, perhaps there's less pressure. You know, it's a bit more of a committed swing, and you've got to have the finesse, and you've got to have the right touch and the right speed. So, you know, you've got to feel it. And I think I've definitely seen a lot of people recently, in particular, who've got quite nervous and anxious over shots, and I do see it. And yeah, I do think there is that pressure involved with short game until you get the right technique. And once you learn the right technique, there's no pressure really, because he's got this big margin for error. I mean, I never feel anxious over a short game shot really, but I mean, if you've got poor technique, yes, you are going to feel anxious. But yeah, I know what you mean. You're trying to save something, aren't you? Which is a key.
Well, that's it. It's like whenever you're chipping, it's because you probably need to make an up and down for some sort of score. And the more important something is, the harder it becomes, right? And for me, that makes it the hardest part of the game.
Yeah.
Would you agree that chipping
I would agree, because I played with you in Hawaii, and I remember you and my partner, and yeah, you had a key moment. I maybe didn't quite pull the chip off.
Didn't quite. No. I thought I've not got an up and down with Dan GRIEVE on my team. It's kind of sacrilegious, really.
You did fail there, but we did we get a half in the end?
We got a half. Well, we lost it down the last.
Oh, did we? Okay.
But I think because of my error,
Right,
it made us make it up and down. Yeah, I don't remind me of that, but whatever. And I'm going to come to the Y word now, the yips, because I've had it, and I think you've mentioned it there briefly. But do you think the yips are more because of a poor technique, or more because of a poor mindset?
Yeah,
like,
great.
Which
no,
comes
it's a great
first?
question. I think it's a great question, and technique for me first, without doubt. So generally, the people who have got the yips, and I think, don't get afraid of saying the word. You've almost got to embrace it. You know, I'm so and so, I'm a yipper, and then work on it from there. But people who generally come with the yips are people who have usually played to an okay standard, and they probably used to chip okay. But what's happened is their technique has just slipped and slipped and slipped to a point where they're no longer trusting that club with the ground. Okay, they're not trusting it. And it's a totally involuntary action. You're coming into the ball and their brain is saying, I'm not trusting this. And there's an involuntary action. It just, electricity, it just happens right through down. So you can't work on the yip directly. That's a waste of time doing that, because it is a mental issue. It is neurological. You've got to understand that. It is neurological, but for me, it begins with technique. Once your technique starts to improve, there's a rewiring that goes on where your brain starts saying, okay, maybe I can do this. And you can work your way out of it. You really can. So it comes from fear of the ground. So it might be the fact the club's coming too far on the inside and it's bottoming out too early. It might be the fact that you've got too much shaft lean. If a leading edge is coming in too sharp and it's digging in. So, you know, with people with the yips, I'll just tend to get the ball a bit further forward. I'll really work on a good swing plane to try and take the wrist out the takeaway. Try and get the chest, the bigger muscles working it, and really try and educate the golfer that it's okay to hit the ground before the ball. If the bounce is on, if it's when at the right angle of attack with the bounce on, you can hit behind the ball up to 2, 3, 4, 5 inches before the ball and still get it on the green. Whereas a lot of golfers think they've got to get that perfect strike. And I think that in itself creates anxiety, because you're trying to get that club perfectly on the back of the ball. Well, you know, when I'm standing up at chip, actually, as long as I hit within 3 or 4 inches of the ball, a lot of the time, I know I'm going to get an okay shot. And I don't know about you, I'd rather stand over a chip knowing I don't need to be perfect than be perfect. And I think it's the art of trying to be perfect creates the anxiety with poor technique. And then, I mean, I've cured loads of people off the yips. I had that guy the other day. I mean, one of the worst sets of yips I've ever seen. He was missing the ball on occasions. It was horrible. But we worked on technique, and it wasn't every time. He's still going to have to work on it, but he started to hit some proper shots, and you can see the light bulb goes off, and he starts to trust the ground, and he'll be fine. He'll be absolutely fine.
Is that light bulb moment that rewiring of the brain you've just spoken about, whereby it's wired to be in a certain way, something bad's going to happen, so I'm going to do something not great? How does it? Is it case by case basis? But how quick can someone rewire their brain out of those yips?
You're not going to get rid of the yips in half an hour.
No,
that isn't going to happen. It's a medium term project, but I think you can get to something like a 50% strike ratio fairly quickly, where you're hitting 1 out of 2 pretty good. You're still going to get a little bit because you've done it for a while, but when the brain trusts the ground, you'll fix yourself.
Because we filmed the video out in Hawaii, and we were talking about this actually, and you sort of, for your standard, I think dunked one. It was sort of 4 or 5 behind the ball when you hold it. Yeah. So that's the point, isn't it? You can play with the ground a little bit.
That's it. So it's intentional. I was just trying to show an intentional duff, and I think I tried to hit it 5 or 6 inches behind the ball, or whatever, and I did that, and it went in, and the contact was okay. So I think that's what people have got to get their head around. You don't have to hit that perfect ball first contact. You can, if you've got enough good ingredients in it, you can get the club working on the ground in a much friendlier fashion.
So chatting about sort of the amateur game and their mentality, you've coached major champions, Georgia Hall, to great success 2018. Just talk us through how her mindset was and how that developed over the years you were working with her to get her to that stage where she won that major.
Yeah, great days. I really enjoyed working with Georgia. Started working with her probably about maybe 3 years before then, on all parts of the game actually, swing, short game and putting, and yeah, we worked really hard on technique, and I think go back to what we talked about, technique just really developed all parts of the game, but in particular a short game. You know, gave her a lot more ability to hit different flighted shots, and bunker play hugely as well. Really worked very hard on that, which was key when she won the major at Lytham in 18, the Open Championship there, the Women's Open Championship. So, and she got up and down. I think that was seven times out of the bunkers there, out of 7.
That felt quite gratifying.
So that was great, and amazing final day, wasn't it, where she had that sort of head-to-head shootout and came through. So that was really special. And you know, she's just got an amazing mental game. You know, she is so strong mentally. She's always been really gritty. You know, back when she first turned pro, if she was on the cut line, she'd make the cut by 1. You know, she'd always kind of do that, and then she started progressing, and you know, just had a fantastic career. I mean, amazing career, sort of top 10 player in the world, and you know, she's just mentally extremely strong. But I do think the bedrock of that is technique. You know, I think the technique allows you to, we said, technically good, mentally good.
So the technique, if you're building blocks, for example, if you're giving advice to a junior or something, or any golfer, is it the building blocks of, even if your head's, you know, in the tumble dryer, it's on Mars, it's all over the place, put that to one side, build your technique first,
Yeah, exactly.
and then the mental side follows, right?
Yeah, you've got to, if you haven't got technique and really good foundations, you're not going to be a player who's going to have any longevity, and you'll come and go a little bit like this. You know, if you want to have a really good career and really achieve the things, you've got to work on just fantastic technique across the game. It helps you mentally. It allows you to always fall back on your basics. You've got to know your basics. But these great players, they're technically great, and they also know what works for them as well. They know what their technique needs to be. They're able to coach themselves and really own it. You know, really own it. But yeah, I think technique. Not so much everyone coaching the same way. You know, it's about knowing your technique, what's important to you, but really understanding it.
And did you have to drill much of that into Georgia? Did she sort of come with that great mindset already and that great technique? Or
really, I don't think in the early days, I don't think she particularly liked how she swung the club, and I don't think she liked that. But as a swing, you know, I kept getting across to me. You know, her swing was fantastic, and we made a few changes. But you know, she was always very strong mentally. Wanted to do things, but I just think just helped to sort of own it a little bit more, really.
Obviously on the Sundays where we see a major champion, we just think, oh, great, good for them. But we forget about the team. So what was that like, sort of being part of Georgia's team for that winning moment? That must have been really gratifying for you as a coach.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, I mean, it's what I always wanted to do, is coach a player to a major championship. So, you know, to have done that, you can always say you've coached a player to a major now. No, it's fantastic.
In your back pocket now, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's done, and you know, it was amazing. Yeah, I was watching it on TV actually at the time. I sort of didn't want to go up there really and sort of start changing things and
be
sort of being
in the
no,
corner.
I just want to leave it to it. And she won, and brilliant. We talked that night, and it was fantastic. Yeah,
brilliant. So she had a great mental game, as we've just discussed. But what are the most sort of common mental errors you see amateurs make around the green? Because so much as their technique might be great, they could make a wrong error up here and it costs them.
No, it's absolutely huge. And you know, people see my stuff. I talk about what golfing IQ, your golfing intelligence, okay, which has to be developed and respected equally, if not more important than the technique. Because you can have great technique with a poor golfing IQ, and it's a waste of time. You won't score well at all. But equally, you can have a great IQ and a poor technique. You have to marry the two. You absolutely have to marry the two. So really, the key task of any golfer, you've got to be able to read the lie, which I really believe the vast majority of club golfers do not read the lie at all well, whether it's from the rough, from the fairway, or the sand. Okay, they don't have the ability to look at the lie and then think, okay, so how does my club need to interact with that ground to hit me the shot I need? So most people tend to play the shot they think they should play. Let's, for example, they missed it under the green. They've got not that much green to work with. They're short-sided, and they've got to go in the air. They'll tend to play that shot pretty much regardless of the lie. So really, I spend a lot of my time teaching golfers about reading the lie. What does that lie allow you to play? What club does that lie allow you to play? And once you understand that, you can choose the shot and you can choose which release you're going to use. But yeah, reading the lie is huge. Everyone can develop their golfing IQ and do that better. And yeah, and club choice really.
Yeah.
You know, just getting the right club in your hand is huge, particularly when you've got lots of green to work with. I see too many golfers using too much loft, way too much loft. So the pin will be at the back of the green. The golfers maybe got 20 yards and they pull out of their favourite club, a 52 or 56. They play it nicely with a nice little chip and run, release one contact, but it'll check up too much and it doesn't release out down towards the flag. So I think golfers could definitely benefit from using less loft generally. There are times when you need more loft to get more check, of course. It's all about reading the situation. It's about having the IQ to do that. But essentially, it's about trying to get your ball roll into the hole a little bit more like a putt. You know, there are times I need to spin it, but generally, when you've got green to work with, just try and get some less loft. You get less loft in it. It might be a 7-iron, it might be a 9-iron or whatever, but just let it roll out a little bit.
Do you like that? Because I always get encouraged to just get a 7-iron out and hit a little sort of putting stroke. Do you encourage that as much as possible?
If you're right, if it's the right, if the lie allows and there's a little bit of you know, green to work with, then yes. If it's downhill and quick, then no. You know, so it all depends. When people say to me, "What club should I use? What shot should I use?" The answer is there's only one answer. It all depends, and there's so many different shots you can play around the green. You know, there's been debates recently. Do you want to be steep? Do you want to be shallow? All these sort of things. I've stayed out of them really because the answer is it all depends. Steep when you need to be, shallow when you need to be. It all depends. There isn't an answer. There isn't one way to do it. You've got to be able to just play all the different shots, but choose the right one at the right time. But generally, if you've got green to work with, get less loft in your hand. I think people will shoot low scores if they do that.
I think take that away with you. If you're taking one thing away from this, I'm going to take that away today. So Dan, some quick fire questions to finish us off this afternoon. So you work, and we see on your Instagram, with a lot of celebrities, ex-sports people from all walks of life. Firstly, how is it working with them? Is it quite a lot of fun to meet them and they sort of come to you and say, teach me? And who's the best? Who's had the best short game who's come up to you?
Oh, good question. Yeah, no, I've been lucky to coach lots of well-known people from various different arenas. And I enjoy working with them because they've all got a similar mindset. They're quite high performing. They're quite determined to get better. I teach a lot of ex-sports people who've achieved at the very, very top level in a particular sport, and then they move to golf and they take the same mindset into golf. So I love working with them because they're all determined to improve. Started working with Clive Woodward many years ago, and it was lovely working with Clive because his work ethic is off the charts, and that certainly rubbed off on me in terms of like how he's just in terms of like work ethic and really grinding. He's like just off the charts in that respect. And language, I think language is really important in coaching as well, and he taught me about how to speak properly and how to use the right words at the right time. So I learned a lot from Clive. The best short game player has been Dan Walker.
Oh, yeah.
Dan's, I mean, great plays. He's one of the best amateurs I think I've ever taught. You know, wow. He's a scratch golfer. He's got a great feel for the game. He cracks me up just plenty of time with him. He's so funny. He's always coming up with like new names for my shots. So he's just very creative. His brain's non-stop, but he's a great golfer. He can hit all the shots. So we've worked on some key bits in his technique so he can start to play more higher spinning shots. But he can play he's a seriously good golfer. You know, he really is very, very impressive. So I'd probably say Dan Walker. John Terry, I taught, and made a massive improvement with him during the session. I wouldn't say he was yippy. He was a bit anxious, and he was very short and sort of proddy. He wouldn't nothing was really flowing. And within a few minutes, we got him hitting some of the best chips he's ever seen. He loved it. You know, we've hitting all sorts of shots, fringe chipping and bunker shots. So he was probably the most improved player in a session, John Terry. But Dan Walker's a different league in terms of the shots he can hit. Yeah,
I've watched him at I think the British Par 3 a few years ago. He's got an unbelievable golf swing, hasn't he? So...
yeah, rips it. He carries it through the air, and it's quite interesting with Dan as well. We were talking, and he did Strictly Come Dancing a few years ago, and he did, so it's obviously full on when you're doing that. You're training like for 3 months every day. I mean, flat out, no time for anything else. So he put his golf clubs away then, did all his training. 3 months later, he goes back on the golf course and his swing speed had gone up 10 miles an hour without hitting a ball because of his legs and his glute strength had just gone through the roof from dancing. So there's the two. If you're looking for more distance, not some ballroom dancing.
I didn't expect that as a piece of advice to say. Dream collaboration on your channel.
Dream collaboration. Anyone from the 80s period. I mean, I love, that for me was the golden era of golf. Really, you had Seve, you had Langer, you had Faldo, Woosnam, Lyle, Olazabal. So really going at it, winning majors, and for me as a young boy back then, seeing these Europeans taking on the Americans, winning the Ryder Cup for the first few times, and that was really inspiring. So anyone, Olazabal or Faldo or someone like Faldo's my absolute hero along with Seve. So anyone like that, and of course Tiger Woods would be great as well, obviously.
It's a nice one, isn't
but that's a bit of an obvious one.
Okay, best shot you've hit on camera, and there might be a few here. Can you think of one that stood out?
Best shot on camera. I remember filming on the 17th of the Dukes course, and there's a tree that splits like this, and Carrie Webb famously hit a shot through it when we had the Women's Open Championship there on the Dukes here at Woburn, and she hit it through the gap and onto the green. So I thought I'd have a go at replicating it on camera, and I did it first time. I hit it through the gap to about 8 feet or so, so that was really good. And also recently, just on the area here at about 80 yards, I was trying to demonstrate a draw pitch, and the camera was right behind it, and I hit this draw pitch and it landed and spun and went in the hole. So that got some nice hits on Instagram, so that was a nicely played shot.
I think I remember that one. That's a good looking shot. On the other side of the coin, the worst shot you've hit on camera, and I know from experience at Golf Monthly, some may get deleted from our channel.
Yes.
Do you try and hide a few?
Yeah, so all get deleted.
Yeah.
So there's nothing, I don't think there's anything on camera that's out there. I hope not. Anyway, that's a bit of blackmail there.
Yeah.
Ransom money for it. But no, it's. I mean, yeah, I hit bad shots a lot of the time when I'm doing videos as well. I'm talking as I'm doing it, so I'm not really fully focused. So sometimes I hit a bad one, but I don't take it too seriously. I try not to dwell on them.
No, agreed. That's a good bit of advice as well. The most nervous you've been playing golf in your career with somebody or an event?
Yeah, I mean, these days I don't really get nervous too much. I just enjoy going out for a game now. I'll say now, we had the Captain Pro matches here at Woburn are pretty competitive, and a few years ago, Craig Watson and I, the captain at the time, we got an amazing run. We won eight games in a row, and they're really competitive. It was hard to win one, never mind win 8 in a row. And I remember we were really getting into it. That felt quite nervous at times, so that was a bit of fun. And then just. Back in the day, playing open qualifying, I suppose was quite nervous back then. But these days, I don't really take it too seriously. I just go and enjoy it, and what will be will be.
If you could pick one, just one. What's the single best short game drill you think there is out there?
In terms of building technique?
Yeah.
I don't want to stand up and do it, but if you put your thumbs together and get your hands back pretty much as far as they go, and pull your arms in this way, so you got your triceps connected to your chest, and if you then just put some weight through your lead foot and just move this way, your hands will then start working on the correct arc. You'll start to feel the correct rotation in the action, and that's really what for me is the foundation of all short game, is having a rotational movement. Because too many people tip this way, and just by setting your hands in that manner and your arms in there, it shows you the correct rotation, and that's something there that you can do from your kitchen, wherever, in the office, and it's going to give you the feel of a short game. And if you can move like that with a club in your hand, you'll be on the road to a better short game.
I suspect there's a lot of people watching now who have just sat and done that. Probably sat watching it now at home. If you could only take one wedge out with you, if you take one wedge out with you, or what is your favourite wedge, degree, loft? If you could just take one as your little favourite.
I take my 52 out. I've always loved my 52. I've always carried, obviously, a pitching wedge out the set, and a 52 and a 56 and a 60. 60s for emergency use only, but I do carry it. But the 52 I love because you can play every shot with it. And I think using a 52, when I was really trying to work on my own short game and develop it, is what helped me develop the touch that I've got today. Because when you practice with a stronger loft like a 52, it encourages you to release the club better, it encourages you to be smoother and softer, so you get the spin and get the control, which you don't get when you're using a lofted club. The luxury of loft hurts you, I think, in terms of building technique. So I love the 52, and I could very, very easily just carry that on a golf course. And I think if the rules changed to only carrying 12 clubs, I think I'd be much higher up in terms of the echelon in professional golf, because and golfers will, generally, because I can play all the shots with a 52 and a lot of players can't. So I think 52, yeah.
Good answer. What bounce do you have on that out of interest? What
That's
bounce?
an 8
8
degree
bounce,
bounce,
52.
tailor-made high toe.
Oh, is it with the
There you
grooves all the way at the top?
Not on the 52, with 56 and 60, having the grooves across, yeah.
Very good. I'm going to take that one with me. Lastly, Dan, sort of the future for you. What are you going to build on now? You've obviously got the book again. I'll get that out again. That was sort of something unexpected, I think you said, really, but it's been quite fruitful. What's the future for you, for the channel, going forward?
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep coaching, by the way. I'm not going to just go full time on social media. So I'm gonna keep just doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna spend more time making some videos on YouTube, because YouTube's grown. It's over 100,000 now, which is, which is a good amount, and that's enabling me to spend a bit more time making some content on there. It's been quite popular, I think, and people have enjoyed learning from it, because it complements the book more than anything, and that's what people like. They can read the book, watch the videos, and it helps them develop more understanding. So I'll make some more content. Might start going on the golf course a little bit more as well, so people can sort of get into that mental side about what it takes to get the ball around the golf course. And yeah, just keep coaching and see what comes my way. I'm just sort of very lucky. Things are just sort of, we'll just see how things work out. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we're enjoying it, Dan. Thank you for joining us.
All right.
Really
Thanks, Dan.
appreciate it, and make sure to follow Dan's stuff. I certainly will be.
Okay. Thank you.